Hi everyone, welcome. We're about to check in on my newest worm bin over here. It's a 22-day-old system with African night crawlers living in there. And yeah, that date is the leap day. So I timed it out in such a way that we were able to get that new bin launched on leap day. And over those 22 days, since the system has been in service, it's been fed a couple times. It was fed on the first day that it was launched, and then 10 days ago we came in here to give them feeding number 2, so I'm lining up feeding number 3. What you see here is an estimated number as far as the number of worms that are thought to live in that system. When we launched off that system and everyone commented on the video, it was me and 8 other people's estimates that provided us with that 748 worm estimate. So we're going to make good on a promise today. A promise to upgrade them into a somewhat larger home. And that's what I've got out here on the bench. So I've got the container. I've got all kinds of bedding materials, cardboard bits, soiled paper towels, napkins, a whole bunch of cardboard tubes that I hacked up, even a replenished supply of leaves, which I've not had in here for a while. I used today's activity as an excuse to go outside and replenish my box of leaves from out in the garden. And I got some water and grit, even some food, and once we're done, a label. So we're going to get to work on this. Let's start by building their environment. Then we can go ahead and empty the worms into their new home once we're ready. So let's get to work. I've used hacked up tubes of cardboard before, but I don't think I've ever had quite this much. I showed up at my sister's house one day recently, and she handed me this bag. It was almost full of these cardboard tubes, and I even added to the collection. It did seem like the amount of space they took up after I hacked them into these little mini tubes is much less. So I figured maybe we would use about half of what's here as a sort of a foundation, which makes me feel like I've got a little cushion of air underneath what I'm doing here. Like a nice little foundation to put stuff onto. And then I've got so much of this soiled paper towel and napkin. Some of this stuff, most of this stuff I would think is from my mom's. Every time I see one of these really large napkins, I know that these are the napkins that my mom likes to go get from IKEA. She's got all these different colors, and she's really sold on these particular types of high quality large napkins. So the other thing I thought we would do was position the feeding that they're getting today down within the system, down low, to give them incentive to go down there exploring. So let's see, let's use a few of these larger sized chunks of cardboard that I've got here. Once again, as a little bit of a foundation to hold the stuff we're going to pile in. What do we got here? I got a nice assortment of stuff, like and it's interesting too. It looks like a lot, but it's definitely not a lot because it's not very heavy whatsoever. I think we've got potato here, and then there's apple peel. And these are all Brussels sprout leaves. So these were from my mom's house. I picked these up from her yesterday. And the rest of this stuff is from here. It's been in my freezer for a while, all these Brussels sprout leaves. And the radishes have been piling up too, because not only do I have my own radish leaves, I've also got the radish leaves that I bring home from my mom's. And oops, looks like this little bundle forgot to have its elastic band removed. Using up a lot more time than I need to. And in this case it's frustrating because it's just my awkwardness and clumsiness that's causing the huge waste of time. Alright, so if you've ever handled the leaves of like carrots or radishes or stuff like that, you'll know that these leaves are like super lightweight. And they're starting to thaw at this point, but even when I bring them down freshly frozen and they're still kind of crunchy, I can like crumble the stuff and even end up with almost like these tiny flakes. It's really very thin material and just crumbles apart like nobody's business. Other stuff I've got here is sort of worm chow, but not worm chow. It's the stuff that I attempted to make my worm chow out of, but refused to get ground up small enough to pass my quality control, which is to pass everything through a kitchen strainer. Everything that makes it through the kitchen strainer becomes my official worm chow. And I don't go too crazy trying to get every last bit of it ground up. I just set it aside and assume that we can make good use of it. Now, here too, I've got my sort of grade B grit. This too was the stuff that went through my grinder, but this stuff was not, see how dusty it is? You never want to breathe in the dust that comes off of your pulverized eggshells, so I'm being careful not to breathe in, and I'm going to turn my head around to catch a gulp of air. So the reason this stuff is so dusty is because I did not take the time to run that stuff to through my process to clean it. If you have an egg, you know that the egg has this sort of membrane, thin inner material, and I usually like to take my pulverized eggshells out and just expose them to some fan pressure. I take a little fan with me and I blow the air so that I can drop this material right in front of the fan, and the fan blows away all the lightweight little dusty material, and the only stuff that drops through the air pressure is the actual little bits of crushed eggshell. So here too you see some napkins, you see some paper towel, you see some whatever. We've got a nice little cushiony layer developing over here. I've also got some interesting little bits of cardboard here piling up. I've been trying to make collections of different colored materials. So here you can see some orange, a little bit of orange that got missed right there. This is the orange too, so I've got some orange cardboard I've been collecting. You can see I held on to some purple that was on this box here, so I've been trying to like put little arrangements of colored cardboard together and set them aside so that at some point maybe we can create an interesting little bedding that's got interesting color schemes to it. So there again, just another one of these goofy things that I take extra time to do that most people would never bother to do. So it's nice to have my leaf collection replenished. This box has been sitting around here empty for quite some time. And you know, I think we'll use some of this stuff at the end too to create a nice little top dressing of our expanded system. So we've given them bedding, we've given them food, we've given them grit, and I'm not even out of bedding yet. Let's just see what we end up with here if we just empty the whole bag and drop it all in. Another interesting little layer. It did make me wonder what it would take for all this material to eventually soak up water, and I questioned how much water I should put in here. This is what I would guess to be about half of a gallon or so. That's about where the water level is in this container. And I just figured pour it in. It's going to be like a puddle on the bottom. It'll soak everything that's down there. The stuff will collapse. This stuff is about this deep right now. It'll probably be about this deep when we come back the next time. So I did want to also maybe create a somewhat more welcoming environment onto which we can drop the contents of the container that the worms live in now. So in effect, we've already completed the feeding by adding the food that they're getting to the new material that they're going to be occupying shortly. The only thing remaining now is upgrading them to their new larger size container and affixing an official label now that we've got them out of their, or now that we're going to be done getting them out of their temporary home. So why don't we go ahead and fetch the green container so that we can get these worms launched and we can make it official. We can stick on the label to the container and call it a day. All right, hold the phone. I almost forgot a very important step, which is the moisture. Like I said, I'm not going to go spreading this stuff around. I'm just going to pour it straight in, let it drop right to the bottom, and then the materials in the bin will have an opportunity to start sucking it all up. There we go. And it also did seem to me like perhaps the least we could do is dampen some of this material out here on the top surface so that once we drop the contents of the interim temporary container that the worms occupy right now, it's not going to come in contact with a bunch of harsh, dry stuff. So just a little idea I had before proceeding to the release of the worms. But I don't think we need much more than that. Why don't we go get them now? Okay, here we go. This is no longer going to be needed, so why don't we take this May 31st calendar day of the far side. I got a whole calendar of these things. And then I always forget that I've got stuff like that. And then these plastic coverings have done a great job here. So we'll be retiring these and giving them something a little bit bigger, something a little bit more appropriate for the new larger size container that they're being moved into. And you know, even these materials here that have been serving the function of top covering, I think we're going to we're just going to hang on to them and use them again in that same capacity. But before we start getting any dirtier, I'm going to grab a glove. All right, I think we're all set to go now. I should be able to proceed with this job uninhibited, protecting my hands from getting extremely soiled. One thing I did do between the last check-in 10 days ago and now was I did pop in maybe once or twice with my spray bottle and just give them a little spritz of moisture. It seemed like a nice thing to do. It's always fun to see worms hanging out on the surface, coming out to greet me. Sometimes I like to check out the worms that are near the surface. Sometimes they're kind of getting to know one another and possibly mating in some cases. And I don't... Did I just have an example of that there and I disrupted it? Doesn't matter. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Let's get this thing out of the way and perhaps move the container a little bit closer to the camera so you can better see. And then we can more or less dump what's in here. In fact, I even thought about possibly doing a really quick, slick maneuver of just trying to dump it out as is, inverting the container and then letting it pop out that way. Do I dare? Should I try? All right, well, if I screw up royally, it's going to be captured on film. Widthwise, is it going to fit? I sure hope it does. All right, keeping my fingers crossed. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whew, that was a little bit frightening, I must admit. I didn't know what to expect. It does seem like we were able to get the majority of the green bin's contents to come out. A little bit is still sticking to the container, and I can try to get the majority of it out now, as well as any worms I see, but I'll probably come back in here and do a little bit more thorough job emptying it. I just don't want to strand any little wormies in here. And then we could proceed to taking a little glimpse at how our somewhat small population of 749 African night crawlers are looking. So I don't see any worms left behind, but I will be taking a closer look at that momentarily. Right now, I'm more interested in checking out how these little guys are doing. You could see kind of an interesting little pattern here, like a quarter of the container has its own specific sort of coloration. So what we did was we took the worms from the baiting station. So we had a couple baiting stations in their old environment trying to round up straggler worms. That was the material that they came over into here with out of their baiting stations. Then I also had some other seasoned material that the worms had lived in previously, which is the stuff I'm kind of breaking open now, which I threw in there as extra. And then this stuff in this corner was just pretty much fresh bedding material. And we had put banana as feeding number 1 when the system was launched that way into each of the 3 segmented areas. And you know, naturally the worms, some of the worms just decided to stay in this familiar stuff that they came over in. And they were eating the banana we gave them over there, but both other environments that we set up for them, the somewhat seasoned material had a banana in it. There were worms in there. Even the brand new fresh bedding had a banana, not a banana, a whole banana, but a banana peel placed in there for them. And there were worms in there too. So that kind of told me all the worms are content in this material and comfortable, so no need to sweat it. And I did try to just sort of homogenize it and combine it all together last time, but I didn't take, you know, a great deal of effort to be overly thorough. I just didn't want to feel like we needed to in some way remain constrained to keeping things separated that way. Even though I didn't go to any great efforts here now either to combine it all, there's certainly no reason that we wouldn't be able to do so in the future, because I'm not going to be attempting to try to keep all those bedding materials separate from one another. They're all fair game to get tilled in and stirred around in future check-ins. So I came pretty well prepared, I think, right? So everything was set up there within reach, so we can simply grab it, and, you know, if we wanted to just come back on with the old coverings, we could, because I didn't even prepare a replacement top covering. I mean, I've got bubble wrap and stuff like that, but what the heck, I figure let's just take what we've already got here and place it on here. It can just be a temporary top covering. It should be sufficient to protect them from excessive drying due to evaporation. But that pretty much leaves us with one last to-do item, and some of you might already know what that is, and that is to give them their nice sticker. I don't know, when I was a kid, I was big time into stickers. I don't know if you're like me, or I guess you'd have to be a little bit older. You'd have to be in my age category to appreciate what, or know and appreciate what wacky packages are, but those were the type of sticker that I really liked collecting when I was a kid. So let's see if I can poke my head around here so I can try to get this sticker on nice and level and centered, and that makes it official. Now our worms have been upgraded into a nice new home, so please welcome my 22-day-old system. Usually it's at the affixing of the label that I welcome a new population of worms to the community, but this has just been a slow, you know, gradual progression to getting them into their kind of forever home, at least the home that they'll be in here for a few months. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Bye now.